Yeah, and then we're actually going to go straight into game one here. I just wanted to make a comment about the Gengar from yesterday on Gemma's team. It was actually terrifying because it's got that high special attack and that sludge bomb. But Amoonguss and Hatterene is going to be the lead of choice here for Dina. Again, like you had said, has that potential for a G-Max Hatterene, which is absolutely terrifying. Persian and Arcanine, though, going to be the lead of choice from Gemma, gets that Intimidate into both of these Pokemon. Not super important. I mean, they are high special attackers, and Amoonguss is more support. But Alola Persian, I think, going to be the interesting choice here.
Definitely the interesting choice. I think Arcanine's on the field really just to threaten the presence of something like the Amoonguss. You know, redirection plus Trick Room is a tried and true strategy, and if anything can pick up a one-hit knockout on an Amoonguss, it would be something like the Arcanine. So, you know, I think Gemma has an opportunity to decide how she wants to play this game one, and if she wants to take it a little bit slower or if she wants to jump straight into those big knockouts.
Oh, a double protect actually from Dina that both Hatterene and Amoonguss choosing this turn to just not get hit. Persian going for the taunt into that Amoonguss, so Amoonguss is actually going to be free to go for Spores or Follow Me's later on. Snarl from Arcanine trying to lower that special attack on Hatterene. Not going to connect again because Dina did choose this turn to protect both her Pokemon.
So that double protect was to avoid the threat of the fake out from the Alolan Persian. So if the Amoonguss or the Hatterene had gotten flinched that turn and the Arcanine went in for an attack, that would have been not good. Alternatively, you know, the Snarl lowering the special attack of that Hatterene really will hurt it after a while, because when you do decide to Dynamax, or in this case, most likely Gigantamax, you are committing to having that Pokemon on the field, and you will stick around with those special attack drops. So by double protecting there, Dina's just making sure that her Hatterene has the best chance of success under Trick Room.
All right, and a Marowak coming in place for that Amoonguss. Dina choosing to switch out that Pokemon here. Persian actually going for a foul play into that spot. Does a lot of damage. That's not what Marowak wants to see on its switch in. Arcanine following that up with a Snarl. Gonna almost pick up the knockout there on Marowak. Just barely misses it. Manages to get that special attack drop on both of them. That Hatterene is gonna take that pretty nicely, though, and is gonna be able to set up that Trick Room. Marowak, though, taking a lot of damage just as that's set up.
Yeah, and that's really rough for that Marowak. I think the switch there was most likely trying to avoid taking some fire-type attack damage on that Amoonguss, but instead the Marowak is really within knockout range. You know, I think Dina does have the benefit of being able to attack twice before her opponent moves, now that the Twisted Dimensions have been set up on the field, but this Alolan Persian and this Arcanine are both at full health, and most likely the Arcanine will be able to stick around for another Snarl in order to pick up the KO on the Marowak and to further weaken the Hatterene. Depending on what item this Alolan Persian is holding, if it's holding something like the Roselli Berry, it most likely could take a fairy-type attack from this Hatterene, but we'll have to see. I can't remember if we saw what item that Alolan Persian had revealed on stream the other day.
Oh, that was way too long ago for me at this point. But Hatterene is actually choosing to get out of there. Amoonguss coming back in place for that Pokemon. As Stomping Tantrum from Marowak is going to connect onto that Arcanine, does super effective damage. Barely misses the knockout as well on this Arcanine, able to eat up that berry it's holding, get back some of that HP, and it will actually be free to go for an attack. Goes for that Snarl, is able to pick up the knockout on Little Alola Marowak, knocks it out. Amoonguss again taking that very nicely as Hatterene did switch out, resets its drop special attack from the previous Snarl from Arcanine, and now Persian is able to go for the taunt. It's actually really nice on that Amoonguss for her, because now it's not able to Spore or Rage Powder.
Yeah, that Amoonguss is essentially not as effective as it would like to be. I mean, I say not as effective. I would even argue it's not effective at all at this point. If it has an attack like Pollen Puff, it can go to, you know, deal some damage on the opposing side of the field, or to potentially heal the Hatterene that Dina's brought back onto the field. But still, it's not going to be able to do what it wanted to do, which is redirection to protect the Hatterene, or alternatively put things to sleep to protect the Hatterene. So a great prediction there by Gemma, going for that taunt, most likely expecting that Amoonguss to make an appearance on the field in some way, shape, or form. That being said, the Hatterene is present, and I think that is something that Gemma will have to respect. If you're in Dima's position, I think going for Dynamax right now is probably one of the most effective things you can do to try to get momentum back on your side, especially if that's a G-Max Hatterene. Its max move will provide confusion to both Pokemon on the opposing side of the field, and that will free up some time if Pokemon end up hitting themselves in the face.
All right, two switches on this turn as Amoonguss is going to be switched out for Serena, and Rotom coming in place instead for that Alola Persian. We are going to see that's a Love Ball. I love that. And we are going to see
a Love Ball shiny Hatterene. That's like perfectly coordinated.
I appreciate that on so many levels. And it's actually going to be that G-Max Hatterene showing up on the field. So like you said, Dina trying her best to get back the momentum for this game. Still in Trick Room mode, so has a couple chances to at least try to turn this around. Max Mindstorm, though, going to be the move of choice, as Arcanine is not going to be able to handle that attack, is going to get knocked out. Sets up Psychic Terrain, which will make Hatterene a little bit more of a threat later on. And like Arcanine, I think, did its job to manage to knock out that Alola Marowak.
Yeah, the Mindstorm there is interesting. I would have expected the G-Max move for that confusion chance, but it could be an indication that Dina really wants the Psychic Terrain up by the end of the Gigantamax on this Hatterene. Unfortunately for her, Rotom Dynamaxing could easily take away that Psychic Terrain with something like a Max Lightning. So Gemma does have options, but right now it's pretty safe to say that priority is going to be blocked no matter what. Not only do you have the Psychic Terrain on the field, Dina also revealed Serena, which has Queensleaf Majesty, which also blocks priority attacks onto your Pokemon. So no fake out this turn in any way, shape, or form from that Alolan Persian. I think that if I were in Gemma's shoes, I would be targeting down that Serena, since it really is the biggest threat for Rotom, which is seeming more and more like Gemma's win condition as we get through this game.
All right, and Rotom hides behind Protect as G-Max Spite, that signature max move from Hatterene, is able to attack onto that side of the field. Critical hit onto that Persian, though, and Rotom is going to be confused. It did manage to hide behind that Protect, but it's going to be interesting the next couple of turns to see if it hurts itself. Alola Persian knocks out from that move. Serena unable to connect with that U-turn thanks to that Protect. And Terrakion, it seems, is going to be the last Pokemon that Gemma's going to have that option to send out.
Interesting that Dina went for the U-turn there. I think that protecting the Serena is important, but you only have a couple of turns of Trick Room left at this moment in time. And once Trick Room has expired, that Serena is going to be relatively slow compared to the Rotom and the Terrakion on Gemma's side of the field. So I'm not sure what Pokemon Dina has on the back at this point. It might be something that's better equipped to handle this Terrakion and that Rotom, which is why she went for the U-turn. Alternatively, this could just be an attempt to ensure that Serena is around, and maybe it's a bulkier Serena, so it could take a hit or two outside of Trick Room and then KO that Rotom once the Terrakion has been fouled.
All right, and so we see Gemma going for that Dynamax Terrakion. It's going to be kind of a pretty scary threat, like you said. It is very a scary Pokemon. It's the attacker for a lot of people, right? Even without beat up, it can be considered just sort of terrifying, but actually chooses to go for Max Guard on this turn as G-Max Spite one more time is going to attack into that Rotom. It's going to do not enough to knock it out, but there is still that confusion chance for Rotom to hurt itself. Terrakion also getting caught in that secondary effect. Actually gets to eat its Lumberry to snap out of confusion, so no taking chances there for Gemma. Rotom is confused, but is able to go for that Nasty Plot. He's able to get that +2 to special attack. If it hits itself next turn, though, that Nasty Plot is just going to backfire on itself, as Power Whip from Serena is able to connect, goes into that Rotom, picks up the remaining HP, and knocks it out, leaving this Terrakion versus the two Pokemon on Dina's field and that Amoonguss in the back.
It's interesting to me that the Serena actually was slower than the Rotom this turn. We are still under Trick Room, which means that next game, in game 2, the Serena will have to retreat from the field when Rotom is around, because Rotom will be able to underspeed it and therefore will have the opportunity to deal damage to it ahead of time. So that's probably an indication, going back to that U-turn turn, that Dina knew that her Serena was going to be faster than the Rotom and was trying to just make sure that the Amoonguss could come in, take a couple hits for it, and then once Trick Room had expired, the Serena can come back, land that Power Whip, and clean up. Fortunately, because Rotom went for the Nasty Plot this turn, Serena is still at full health, and this should be pretty easy for Dina to clean up and win game 1.
And Hatterene is going for that Protect here as Terrakion goes for the Max Rockfall. I think she actually clicked into that Hatterene spot. So Hatterene taking a little bit less damage thanks to that Protect, but the Sandstorm is going to be coming into play on this field and get some chip damage, at least into either of these Pokemon. Serena, though, still sitting nicely there. Manages to connect another Power Whip, does a considerable amount of damage.
So much damage.
Takes that Sandstorm damage at the end just for that, but that is still an insane amount of damage.
It really is. And unfortunately for this Terrakion, the Dynamax is working against it at this point in time. I think this Terrakion really misses Rock Slide and having the ability to hit 2 Pokemon at once. As long as Serena is able to land this Power Whip, which admittedly is a chance, this Terrakion is going to get knocked out this turn. So really well played by Gemma and Dina. You know, I think that Gemma was playing to her outs at the end of the game. I might have considered going for a Max Guard on the last turn of Dynamax just so that you could get that Rock Slide back and maybe buy yourself a little bit of time in that way. But overall, going for the Hatterene, just consistently ensuring that the Pokemon that can hit you with an expanding force, most likely, which is 100% accurate and boosted by the Psychic Terrain on top of all of that, is unable to attack, and maybe just hoping for a little bit of luck, which didn't come through. Going into game 2, I think that Dina ultimately was able to get so much momentum from that Trick Room. The way that Gemma started that game with the Alolan Persian and the Arcanine, even though the Persian had access to Taunt, didn't really threaten the Trick Room setup in any way, shape, or form. You know, Dina was pretty comfortable just double protecting and playing around it. So I think that going into game 2, Gemma needs to figure out another way to stop Trick Room, or alternatively just aggressively go for those taunts, or otherwise just try to find a way to power through the Hatterene and the Amoonguss lead. It's possible that Gemma has another option on her team to try and stop Trick Room. You know, I know that sometimes people will bring their own Amoonguss in a Trick Room setting to try and put the other Pokemon to sleep on the opposing side of the field. Sometimes they'll have a Pokemon that knows Trick Room, so you can just manually reset it itself. Those are certainly options, but we haven't seen that information revealed yet from Gemma. If I were Dina, I'd probably go with the same exact strategy. I don't really see any downsides to bringing the 4 Pokemon she brought that last game, provided she is comfortable with the speed control aspects of everything. But, you know, with the Amoonguss on her side, I think that gives her a lot of wiggle room and gives her the ability to adapt to whatever Gemma decides to bring.
Yeah, especially because I think in game 1, I think both of us were kind of taken aback by the Alola Marowak, switching in and like taking so much damage. And I thought I was actually going to be a game changer towards Gemma's side, but Dina kind of recovered from that and was like, you know, if Alola Marowak goes down, that's okay. I can adjust to that. Amoonguss and Hatterene, though, is going to be the same lead from before for Dina, which worked out wonderfully for her. But a little bit of a change here for Gemma brings that Terrakion and that Alola Persian, who we know are the beat-up combo for her in this matchup.
I don't know if you go for beat up here, though. I wonder if this is more so an attempt by Gemma to apply some pressure onto the field rather than to, you know, go for the beat up immediately.
All right, and Hatterene is going to be faked out here from the Hello. The Rage Powder coming in a little bit too late here. Terrakion going for the Sword Stance. So actually, you know, kind of a turn for Gemma where she's like, hey, I'm going to set up and make sure that you can't, because Hatterene now unable to move thanks to that fake out.
Yeah, you really don't need beat up if you're able to use Sword Stance on your own Pokemon. But I don't know, maybe you get tempted and go for it anyways just to hit that +6. I mean, talk about a lovely number when it comes to stat boosts. Like just all the attack, all the power. And really, if you're able to land 2 potentially +6 rock slides on both this Hatterene and Amoonguss, I don't think they're necessarily trained to take that. I would even argue that there might not be any Pokemon on Dina's team that could take a +6 rock slide, but we'll just have to see.
All right, so Rage Powder normally would redirect, but Alola Persian going into that Terrakion, it shows us that that's safety goggles, so it totally ignores that Rage Powder from Amoonguss, is able to go for the beat up on Terrakion. That is going to be a +6 Terrakion and no Dynamax here. If I were to, you know what, if I'm your opponent and I saw that, I would be shaking in my boots right now because that is a scary thing to see, just that continual attack rise. And Terrakion going for, we know that it has that Rock Slide, like its favorite move to carry. There it is.
And it hits.
It connects with both of them. Oh my gosh, that's an insane amount of damage, and it manages to pick up that double knockout on there. Hatterene unable to go for the Trick Room that it was so desperately wanted to set up. Oh my gosh, that is so scary.
That is how you do it, honestly. After a game 1 that was really defined by Trick Room, adjusting so that you have a very, very powerful spread move immediately at the start of game 2 is just the perfect way to shut down Trick Room. That being said, it's possible that in game 3, I think that this match at this point is pretty easy to clean up. You just click Rock Slide until you can't click Rock Slide anymore. Going into game 3, Dina does have the option to not go for that Rage Powder turn 1 and instead try to get a Spore on either of these two Pokemon. You know that it won't work on the Alolan Persian now that we have the reveal of the safety goggles, and actually it won't work on the Terrakion either because of the Lumberry. So even though this game is going to wrap up fairly quickly, I think Dina needs to take this time to really reconsider how she's going to play game 3, knowing that Trick Room really was the defining factor for her win in game 1 and her loss in game 2.
Serena trying its best, though, as it is the Pokemon chosen to Dynamax here instead of the Alola Marowak. Has that Max Overgrowth move for it, which could do a lot of damage to Terrakion. But Persian going for the Foul Play into that Marowak, we saw it had done so much damage before. Terrakion able to go before both of these Pokemon, picks up that knock on Marowak, gets a critical hit on Marowak as well. At least it wasn't a critical hit on that Serena, because that would have just been absolutely game over. Not much I think that the Serena can do, though. Connects the Max Overgrowth, but at this point, picks up the knockout. But
yeah, the KO is there, and I think that's important, if only for damage calc's sake. I mean, we know that the Serena is faster than the Rotom Wash on Gemma's team, so maybe the Serena outside of Trick Room is something that Dina considers as a game plan for game 3. Getting this information now is going to be really important, and I think if there's one other thing she can get from this game before, again, Gemma cleans up and we go on to game 3, I would think it would be how much damage Serena can do to that Persian. I don't know if she's necessarily going to be able to get that information. We're going to have to see how some speeds play out first, and how much damage this, a fire type attack from the Arcanine would do on Gemma's side of the field. But still, it's a good opportunity for information. Or you could just forfeit. You could just forfeit.
I mean, I think at that point, if you're Dina, it's okay, might as well just go to game 3, right? I do want to comment, though. I think when you had pointed out about the Terrakion and the Alola Persian and how sort of Spore wouldn't work on either of them, it kind of made me realize Lumberry is such a good item to have again, especially in this format. And it's so weird because it's one of those berries that sort of gets lost in the format's past, right? There was just so many other berries that were so much better than it. And I think now seeing it be used so often by people has just been kind of cool to see. And if you're Dina and you realize that in game 1 that Terrakion has Lumberry, and now you know that Persian has those safety goggles, your Amoonguss, I think, is one of those Pokemon that it's not really doing much for you anymore. And how do you circumvent that? Especially now that we saw that that little Persian, that Terrakion just absolutely swept.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, if you want to talk about the history of Terrakion for a moment, it started out, I think, with Focus Sash, and this is going all the way back to 2011 days, because apparently this weekend is the weekend I talk about being an old VGC player. And then it shifted to Lumberry, and then it shifted back to Focus Sash, and now it's back to Lumberry, and it's probably going to keep repeating that cycle because, there's merits to both. But in this matchup in particular, Lumberry is great because there really is nothing on Dina's side of the field that can outspeed the Terrakion and make that Focus Sash a valuable thing to have. So going into this game 3, I don't see anything that Dina has on her team that could necessarily really punish that beat up setup. So I think what she has to do is she has to just find a way to get that KO on Terrakion as soon as she can. And I really think the Dynamax Serena is the best way she can do that. We saw that it can take a +6 Rock Slide in its Dynamax form. We know that it can deal enough damage with Max Overgrowth to return a KO. All she has to do is figure out a way to stop maybe something like the Intimidate from that Arcanine causing trouble so that the Serena is in the clear. But if we see a lead that is the Alolan Persian and the Terrakion again, that would give her the opportunity to play the board as she needs.
I mean, we're going from the potential Trick Room modes to maybe a Tailwind as Talonflame and Urshifu, not brought in the previous games, make their appearance in this game 3. What a way to like start your day too, going straight to game 3. But Persian and Terrakion going to be still the lead of choice for Gemma, but I think Dina is adjusting in the best way she can right now.
She is, and you really have to make these kind of adjustments. I think that Talonflame is a good Pokemon for this matchup as well, because if it does have that Gale Wings ability, priority Brave Bird is one way to hit Terrakion hard and fast and outspeed it in a guaranteed way, provided you still have full health and Gale Wings is still available to you. You could also go for a Tailwind so that all your Pokemon potentially can outspeed that Terrakion depending on how they're trained. It just gives her a little bit more flexibility than the Trick Room setup did back in games 1 and 2.
Gemma going straight for that Dynamax with Terrakion, though. We didn't see that until really late in like that first game. But Dina returning with her own Dynamax potential Gmax with that Urshifu. I know we saw one, I think the other day that wasn't a Gmax Urshifu, but
this one is.
This one definitely is. That
he has the extra like ribbon things. I don't know what.
That's a really cool outfit change.
Yes.
When he Gigantamaxes, and this is gonna be I think Dina like choosing to just go all out for it as Persian goes for the Fake Out into Talonflame, gets rid of that Gale Wings ability as it has that HP damage. Max Rockfall though, depending on which Pokemon it goes into, could be sort of a game changer here. Actually goes into the Talonflame to guarantee that knockout. Don't want to mess around with the potential for the Tailwind. Don't want to worry about sort of like you had mentioned like that Brave Bird, Sandstorm, even if like for somehow that Rockfall didn't knock it out, would have knocked out Talonflame at this end, as Gmax Rapid Flow, that signature move, is going to go into that Terrakion and also returns with a clean knockout on one of the biggest threats on Gemma's team.
Yeah, I'm glad that you called out the Terrakion as one of the biggest threats, because I think that trading the Talonflame for the Terrakion is actually a really good trade for Dina. Depending on what Pokemon she has in the back, she might not even need speed control for the rest of this game. Knowing that it is the Urshifu Rapid Strike form, especially with the Gmax, there's nothing that's going to stop those incredibly powerful Water-type moves at this point in time. Yes, Alolan Persian can go for something like a Foul Play to deal damage based off of the Urshifu's attack stat. Maybe some Intimidates could be thrown onto the field. But it looks like we're seeing another adjustment from Gemma here, bringing the Gengar this game, which is a interesting Pokemon, certainly has options to help make this Urshifu a bit more manageable and really threatens that Serena as well. So a good adjustment here. We'll just have to see how Gemma decides to play it, because as of right now, Urshifu is still going to be in charge of the momentum on the field.
Yeah, I don't know what you do against a Pokemon like that once your Terrakion, who we know was sort of like that, okay, this is how I'm going to knock out Pokemon, once that goes down in that first turn, especially because it feels like both Gengar and I think the last Pokemon we're seeing here is the Arcanine that she had chosen. All three of these Pokemon feel more like support Pokemon than anything else, and like against Urshifu, it just doesn't seem like they have enough firepower between them, as Intimidate does manage to get a -1 stage to that Urshifu. Not going to, I think matter much, but the Will-O-Wisp connecting is going to help a little bit more on top of that Intimidate from earlier, but Gmax Rapid Flow is just going to do like a lot of damage into that Gengar spot, but not enough to pick up a knockout though. Gets it to half health, showing that's a Life Orb Urshifu as well. Serena going for the U-turn into what was a little Persian. Arcanine eating that so nicely, as Dina though is going to choose this moment to go for an adjustment and is able to bring out her last Pokemon as well.
I mean, this is exactly how you deal with this Urshifu. Honestly, the best thing that Gemma can do, knowing that she has access to the Arcanine and the Will-O-Wisp on the Gengar, is essentially Intimidate cycle, so that the Urshifu is just not making the most out of its Dynamax turns. The fact that the Gengar could take that turn with the Intimidate and the Burn, I think, is going to be key as we move forward in this game. Gemma could decide to switch out the Arcanine again for that Alolan Persian, depending on what she feels is the most valuable going into the rest of this matchup, and then just keep getting those Intimidates. Dina does have 3 physical attackers left on the field, and unfortunately, the Will-O-Wisp is unable to burn that Alolan Marowak because it's a Fire-type Pokemon. So I think that Intimidate is really going to be key, and I'd like to see Gemma play to protect that Arcanine a bit more. Even though the Urshifu has been burned and it is intimidated, it's highly possible that one max move would be enough to put Arcanine within KO range. So I think switching it out here to protect it so that it can come back and intimidate again is really her best play.
All right, and Persian is coming into the field for that Arcanine. Sludge Bomb doing a significant amount of damage into that GMAX Urshifu. Rapid Flow going to be able to pick up the knockout now on that Gengar, despite the Intimidate and the burns. But at least Gemma is able to bring back that Arcanine for one more Intimidate, as this is the last turn of GMAX for that Urshifu. Stopping Tantrum from Marowak, which would have gone into that Arcanine, instead meets into that Persian, who takes that pretty nicely as well. Both these Pokemon also taking residual damage from not just the burn, but from that Sandstorm as well. Arcanine able to come in and get another Intimidate, so that's going to be a -2 for this Urshifu. But now that its Dynamax turns are over, I mean, you have the option to, I guess, switch it out and reset those attack stats.
You do have the option, but at the end of the day, the Urshifu is still going to be burned. I would think that its time on the field at this point would be better served trying to KO that Arcanine. You know, looking at the Pokemon that Gemma have left and trying to identify her win condition, she needs to figure out how to do big damage with these Pokemon. Foul Play from that Alolan Persian is going to threaten a KO on Marowak, especially after sand damage at the end of this turn. The Arcanine certainly can threaten a knockout onto the Serena with a fire type attack, but you don't really want to be exposing that Serena to the Arcanine too early for that exact reason. So even though the Arcanine is at full health, and even though the Urshifu has been, weakened so much by the burn and by the Intimidates, now that it's back into its normal non-Dynamax form, Surging Strikes will crit. It'll hit 3 times and it'll crit, and that will, sort of help offset the damage reduction that otherwise would be there.
Urshifu doesn't want to take any damage this turn, though, as it goes for Protect. Arcanine going for a Flamethrower into that protected Urshifu spot. Foul Play into the Marowak from earlier also. Managed to get it into the yellow, but not enough to knock it out, and Arcanine's going to have to take some damage from that Stopping Tantrum. All these Pokemon are going to take that Sandstorm damage as well, which is... slowly chipping away.
Berry.
Oh, man.
That was key.
That was really good for Gemma, because now her Arcanine is healthy again. You can go into the Alola Marowak with that Alola Persian and not have to worry about your Arcanine getting knocked out by Stopping Tantrum.
I mean, it's possible that the Arcanine is still within knockout range from a Surging Strikes, but still, the fact that Arcanine was able to take just enough damage to get into that 25% range to activate that Ayapapa Berry, I think is really, really key here. Arcanine has the best possible chance it has right now to survive this turn and then threaten the Serena the next turn once one or both of these Pokemon has been KO'd.
Okay, Persian going for the Foul Play is going to just barely miss the knockout on that Urshifu. Urshifu able to go for the Surging Strikes. That would have been big if she was able to knock that out. 3 attacks into Arcanine, though, all critical hits. I don't think it's going to be. Yeah, it only needed 2. Arcanine is going to go down on this turn, but man, what a turn that would have been. That was still just very stressful. Urshifu losing the Life Orb HP and then also just getting knocked out here. A little bit too late for Gemma. Stopping Tantrum from Marowak going to be able to connect into Persian. Does okay damage Sandstorm ends this turn, but Serena's going to be able to come in, and we've seen it just be an absolute powerhouse.
Yeah, that Foul Play, unfortunately, it was those Intimidates that made sure that Urshifu was able to hang on for one more attack. That was such a close call there. But, I think Gemma did her absolute best to try and position things so that it would have succeeded. If Arcanine could have held on during that attack, or otherwise maybe protected itself while that Alolan Persian went for like a Snarl to just try and chip down that Urshifu's health just a teeny bit more, I think she could have had this game won. But that's just how Pokemon works. I really like how she was using those Intimidates to try and ensure her Arcanine had the best possible chance of survival against that Urshifu, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, so Persian doing its best goes for the Foul Play, gets hit by both a Flare Blitz and a U-turn, and already being in the red, there's just no way this Persian can survive, giving the game and the round to Dina, who will advance. Man, that adjustment from her for that game 3 was just absolutely fantastic. Like, I know we didn't see Talonflame do much, but the Urshifu was just like, she chose to bring that Pokemon in at the best moment for her after seeing Trick Room didn't work. And I think I really appreciate seeing that adjustment happen.
I really appreciate seeing that adjustment as well. I think that, she essentially told Gemma, you have 2 options here. You can go for the KO on the Urshifu, which is the Water-type Rapid Strike form. You know that it's going to be a huge threat to your team. Or you can go for the KO on Talonflame and try to disrupt speed control, take your pick. And she very smartly ensured that both Pokemon were on the offensive in that turn 1. And because they were both on the offensive, and because Gemma decided to go for the knockout out on the Talonflame, it just really opened the field up for that Urshifu to go through everything. So really well played to both of these trainers. I love Gemma's team. I know that we didn't see it do too well here today, getting knocked out in our round of top 16 plus 2, top 16-ish here in Top Cut. But it's just such a well-constructed team. Even though it didn't have the best matchups in Game 1 and Game 3 of this series, she had the tools to counter the Trick Room mode and counter, this Urshifu mode. Even though the Urshifu essentially, sort of rolled through that game, it was still a very close game from both trainers. So, shout outs to both of them. Gemma, I hope we'll be seeing more of you soon in competitions. Again, I love your team. It's just very bulky and very fun, which is exactly what I look for when building Pokemon teams. And yeah, congrats to Dina to move on to top 8. I think that's really fun. Hatteran doing what Hatteran does best. And, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Hatteran go all the way to the top.
Yeah. But guys, just don't go anywhere. We'll try to get to you to our next set of rounds as soon as everyone else wraps up. Crossing my fingers, there's some really spicy matchups out there, and I'm very excited to see how they play out. But thank you guys for tuning in, and just hang around.